take time away from what our mission is to have time for ourselves. But at the same time, we've been doing it this is our 7th year now, going into our 8th. And if we didn't love our troops, if we didn't love this country, if we weren't true patriots, true Americans, and recognize that it's because of the service of our past and present military members, none of us would be enjoying this fantastic day, this awesome day here on the Space Coast right now. We just wouldn't. We'd be under German rule or Japanese rule from World War II. Who knows? But it's because of the brilliance of past leaders that have saw fit to keep this country strong and uphold the Constitution, that we have the military we have, and we have the safety and the liberty, and most importantly, the freedoms that we have. And I know they're getting eroded all the time, and with the political season, I guess, just having come to an end here, at least for the presidential elections, there's a lot of talk about this, that, or the other regarding our military, the infrastructure, our battle readiness. And if we can just talk on that for just a moment, just so your audience understands. We have a kind of a demoralized military. Our military strength is at a level prior to that seen before World War II.
Whoa.
All right? Let that sink in for a moment.
While that's thinking in, let me ask you a question. And you may be leading to this, and if you are, just tell me so. But under the new administration, do you see any improvements on the horizon?
Well, as you can imagine, as a 501c3 under the IRS, AVET Project remains apolitical, and we happen to be non-religious just because we don't want to alienate anybody.
No, I'm not saying that, but under the new administration, do you see anything moving forward for our veterans?
What direction do you see it?
Well, yeah, and that's fodder for us to talk about without me even coming close to the boundary of what the law
we
allows.
understand. We don't talk politics on our radio show, so I totally get you.
Well, but it's a great point, because just I think during the election night coverage that another station that American Warrior Radio plays on, I joined in that conversation for about 20 minutes, and of course that was the heat of the political battle here. But you can still talk about issues specific to our active duty and our veteran population without getting into the weeds of the politics and the Democrat versus Republican. And Richard, just to address that point, I gotta believe that this country, based on the vote that just happened, is really interested in some supreme priorities. One of them being, and this is constitutional, you gotta protect the homeland. You gotta take care of these United States.
Amen.
And I see that happening. I see that going to be a priority. It should be the number one priority, but I'm certain of the fact that we're going to start upgrading our battle readiness, because if anybody out there is a vet and gets American Legion magazine or VFW magazine, you'll see an article here and there about how the services, the individual DOD branches, are lamenting the fact that their battle readiness has suffered so greatly because of the recent political strife and what do they call it, sequestration and all that jazz, that we really don't have much way to go but up. And I'm confident that we're going to see increases in the military infrastructure. We've got to get more troops. This Saturday, AVET Project, and we do this regularly whenever the occasion presents itself, we're going to the 124th Infantry Regiment in Cocoa. It's a National Guard unit. And we're going to provide a holiday dinner and toys and games and things like that for the troops that were left behind, because there's 104 of them deployed over to North Africa and Djibouti right now doing their mission. 104 from a, keep in mind, National Guard unit. Well, we're going to be there helping out the families and the remaining troops that had to stay back, and we're going to have a great time. But what does that really say? To me, that tells me that we have had to augment our active duty forces with not just National Guard, but also the reserve branch of the various military. What does that say? If we've so depleted our active duty forces that we've got to call up what used to be weekend warriors, okay, these guys and gals that would sign up as a strategic, not an operational force, but man, if we absolutely need you, we'll call you. It's not that way anymore. Okay, it is an operational force structure. They will automatically deploy. You go into the National Guard for your education benefit or what have you. you best be ready to deploy, because our active duty forces are so small and so strained in so many multiple deployments that they've made it a practice. Since actually the Bush administration under Secretary Gates, it's a practice now that you're going to be called up to augment, to fill in, to backfill, if you will, the active duty force numbers, because they've shrunk so much.
You know, I remember that when I actually was living in Germany when the first Gulf War happened. And of course, all the troops were deployed down to, the Middle East. So they brought the reserves and then in to fill in positions on bases there in Germany. So yeah, that's kind of what they were used as fillers that way. But now, like you said, they're actually going where they're facing combat.
Well, Title 10 of the United States Code governs active duty, and it also obviously governs the Guard and Reserves. Used to consider our weekend warrior structure as a strategic force. And when the change was made, based on the fact that they were lowering the levels of active duty, it is now fully an operational, automatically scheduled, you will deploy, yada, yada. And it impacts the community as a whole, society here in the United States as a whole, because whether you've got an auto mechanic down the street that's in the Army Reserves or maybe Army Guard, maybe it's your dentist, whoever it might be, whatever skill level or occupation they have, if they're in the Guard or Reserves, they're getting called up. And they're going to have to be pulled from their practice or their work and sent over there, and the families are left going, oh my gosh, some of them are suffering some severe financial penalties.
Exactly.
Just because the pay isn't the same.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's making an impact on the community they leave behind, again, because their businesses either have been shut down or on hold, and the families are the ones that are suffering here and not being able to contribute back into the community.
Well, and we here on the Space Coast recently had Hurricane Matthew come through, and praise God, honestly, I'm a man of faith, so I'm going to say that. We didn't get hit like they predicted. We were blessed, just whatever, lucky, whatever, however you want to say it. But the nice thing is, here in Florida with our governor, he was prepared. He had called up and put troops on the ready to come in and help however they were needed, which is good. But that force that he had to call upon was so much smaller than it would have been, 8-9 years ago. And that's really how most Americans view the National Guard and even the reserves, is that if we absolutely need you, whether here in the States for a natural tragedy or a national emergency, or if you absolutely have to, like you said, backfill in other bases across the planet as our warfighters go into the imminent danger areas, that's understandable, but now the political theme is they're just part of the operational force, and it really gets to me. It gets to me and it bothers me, and as you said, as you asked Richard, what kind of changes do I see on the horizon? I would hope that we can beef up our active forces to the degree that the weekend warriors can go back to doing what they have, always been, and that is just be there on the ready if we need you, rather than, yep, you're going.
And put you into the rotational, operational.
Good word.
Well, and with that, now let's kind of backtrack, and those that come home, and they're now having to go to their local VAs, the Veteran Administration Service, and get some care. What do you see happening there? What has been happening there, I should say? I know Richard calls it the debacle that we've seen over the last couple of years with the veteran, the Veterans Administration. Do you see some improvements coming?
Well, I'm gonna just throw this out there. Under the Obama administration, when we had his first Secretary, Department of Veterans Affairs, which is a cabinet-level position, has been since 1988, when Jesse Brown was the first appointee there. General Eric Shinseki did a phenomenal job. And Glenn and I on American Warrior Radio did an entire show after his head had to roll because of politics behind it all. We covered all the good things that man had instituted and implemented throughout the VA, and it's shocking. The list was huge. So then they bring in Bob McDonald from Procter & Gamble, West Point grad, and accomplished man, obviously, and he's done an okay job, but I don't think he's going to keep his job. But let me just share this real quick, one little anecdote as to why he probably won't keep his job. We talked off the air. My wife was telling Cheri that I had to go into the hospital here the other day, over at the $600 million+ VA hospital in Lake North.
Facility.
Yeah, and it's still not open all the way.
I know.
And so I'm sure it's crept into the $750 million mark by now.
Need a mind map to find your car when you're leaving, too.
Exactly. Well, the VA as a whole, and I've got a very dear friend of mine that works within the BAS, Benefit Assistance Services within the VA. They are in charge of all the media, the online media, and helping the various groups within the VA get their online media together and operating properly. Well, they've made a lot of gains in recent years, particularly through the My Health AVET, which is a computer system that every single veteran, whether you're a service-connected disabled vet, and we can talk about that in a moment, what that means, or just a veteran that has served this country and has some VA eligibility, you should get on to My Health AVET. They've changed the name now. It's called myhealth.va.gov. They dropped the EVET off of it. But, so I go into the hospital there, and I'm in the urgent care because the emergency room isn't open yet. And I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. It took them an hour for them to even get my vitals, and then they told me it'd take a couple more hours for me to see a doctor. That's just the truth. I'm just telling you what happened. Well, I figured, okay, I'm sitting here. Let me go over to this kiosk, this electronic kiosk, My Health AVET kiosk, and I'll look and see if I can send a secure message, which is one of the perks of this system. You can actually send basically an email to your actual provider, wherever they might be. Mine's in Viera. Okay, so you can do that, and I was going to send him a message saying, I don't think I'm going to be seen here, so can I get in to see you? So I go over to the kiosk, and it's right there. It's all shiny and new. It didn't work.
Oh, wow.
I went over to the other little kiosk where another little reminder for all the vets out there, if you're a service-connected disabled vet and you have to travel to one of your medical appointments, make sure and claim your travel allowance. All right, it's a per mileage, based on mileage and how many miles you have to drive, but they give you basically some money back to help cover gas. So, walk over to that kiosk. Guess what?
Didn't work.
It didn't work. So, even though they've made some gains in getting into the computer age, and we can talk about their electronic record system in a second, they're still so far behind. You can't tell me if I was in the complex of another private company that had some similar system, it would have worked. It would have worked. But the VA, I don't know if they trip over themselves or what have you, but even though they're making the effort to get into the electronic age, they're way, way behind, and their systems go down far too often. And really, Richard, I'd ask your opinion on that. How many people do you think it takes to keep an email service or My Health AVET up and running?
Once you've got it set up, no more than it does to run the computer and email system at your house on that. Setting it up and all that, well, that's a monumental task with something as large as the Veterans Administration and all the branches and all the medical facilities that are out there. But the maintenance of it is not that difficult. My thing is, I walk into the VA office, and in the middle of the day, we're down for maintenance and updates. Why isn't that done at 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning? Why during 8 to 5 do we do updates?
Which is the only time they see people in the VA.
You got
exactly.
that.
It would be like closing down a main thoroughfare to do some pothole repairs because it was convenient for the work crew.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And that's unfortunate. That's the way the government has always worked.
Those are changes that I think a new VA secretary is going to want to tackle. Whether they do or not, I can't say. But even though I could give thousands of anecdotal stories like that to your listeners, they probably have, if they're a veteran or if they're an active duty member that's separating and starting to become involved with the VA, they're going to have their own stories. Mm-hmm. And it's just unfortunate that they're not putting emphasis